What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. Phil Perry, Matt Cassel alongside. We're going to get into the Mac and Bailey conversation once again. It ain't dead yet. Are there people out there actually moving off their spot and saying that Bailey Zappe should be the starter instead of Mac Jones? Are there prominent people saying that? Well, yes, there are. Are there many prominent people saying the opposite? Well, yes, there are. What are we three saying? Well, here it comes. All right, they're the boys. It's Perry, it's Cassel, and obviously the persistence of this conversation is interesting. And, since nature abhors a vacuum, there are many takes being vomited into the vacuum sphere. Not necessarily vomited, but, even Julian Edelman's in on it. Here's Julian Edelman speaking this week.
This is you, Julian.
Here we go.
Should Happy Zappe start even when Mac Jones comes back healthy?
Create no distractions.
I'm not creating a distraction. I'm going to tell you the truth, though.
Ooh,
he continues to play the way he's playing right now. He has to be the starter. I mean, Mac Jones is going to be coming off a high ankle sprain. His strengths in the pocket is his ability to move. Yep. If he can't stick his foot in the ground, he can't plant off his foot, there's going to be some deficiencies. And Zappe matched Mac's best game last year on the road against the Cleveland Browns, getting a win.
And then, of course, for the flip side, we got Dan Orlovsky, who is Team Mac.
Bailey Zappe has played really cool football. Like he's played nice football. He's done exactly what he's wanted. But I haven't seen this young man make many. I said this last week. I don't think against the Lions. First of all, he played the 31st and 32nd ranked pass defense in the NFL. So awesome. He hasn't made many NFL legit throws where you sit there and go, man, that ball had to come out before the receiver's ready and there's two defenders there and he's got to throw that ball to a perfect spot and place it exactly there. Probably had two or three more this past week against Cleveland. I said, they're all nice job. No quarterback has had more time to throw the football in the past 2 weeks than Bailey Zappe, and that's part of because their offensive line has done such a great job. They've max protected the play action. I mean, guys are butt naked open, so I am not minimizing his performance. He has done a nice job. But Mac Jones has done stuff at the NFL level consistently and far more often.
All right, so with all this stuff swirling, Matt Cassel, all this noise, it really isn't truly consequential to how the Patriots play, what Julian Edelman thinks or Dan Orlovsky thinks or we three think. You got two good players, it appears. So for Belichick, is this really a win for him because he can say, hey, ignore the noise, put your face down, and study up on Justin Fields and the Bears?
Well, his approach is the same every single week, and there's a lot of noise outside this building. Everybody has an opinion. You're either pro Zappe, you want him to stay in, you want him to be the starter, the controversy swirling, Mac Jones struggled early in the year, or you're like Dan Orlovsky, you're like, hey, look, the proof is in the tape. You go watch what he did last year, the big-time throws, the different positions that he was put in and how he excelled last year. He is the starting quarterback of this team, and once he comes back healthy, he'll prove that once again. So it's really difficult at times for players to just shut out the noise on the outside, but they talk about it constantly with the New England Patriots. And the one thing that I'll say about Coach Belichick and his approach is it's consistent week in and week out. We're turning the page. We're concentrating on the opponent. We don't talk about, what's going on, what's being asked, and all the different things that are revolving around the quarterback position. Instead, you got to focus on your job. You got to focus on the task at hand, and you got to get ready for the Chicago Bears. Because if you don't, and you take any team lightly, no matter what's going on, no matter how much is swirling on the outside about your quarterback position, then ultimately it'll catch up to you, and you have the opportunity to once again lose a ball game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't put a lot of stock, Tom, necessarily into the noise and how it might impact them and how it might take away some of their focus from their preparation this week until I heard from Julian Edelman. I'm baffled by that quote from Julian Edelman. I truly am. This is a guy who's not that far removed from being in the locker room here in New England, who understands not only how the head coach thinks, but how a lot of that guys in the locker room think. And I'm not saying he's reporting on any of their feelings or whether or not they're shifting with the wind and with Bailey Zappe and what they've seen over the course of the last couple of weeks. But his comments there do at least open the door for me that maybe there are a few guys in there who like the way Zappe has played enough to feel as though they should continue to roll with him. That's not what I've heard. I've heard nothing but a lot of support for Mac Jones and that when he's healthy, he should be the guy because he gives them a better chance, because he's just plain and simple the better player right now. But Edelman's comments kind of blow me away a little bit, because I was not expecting to hear that take from somebody who is that close to the team still this early on in the Bailey Zappe tenure.
It's funny because there's no one whose opinion that I trust who has yet said that this is an anti-Mac sentiment. It's a pro-Bailey sentiment. It's more of, hey, he's hot, stick with him. Now, I guess inherent in that is you have to be anti-Mac and think that this guy's an upgrade over what Mac was giving you. But it's not, hey, the party's over. He's been exposed. Generally speaking, among analysts, there's plenty of fans out there who will say Mac Jones isn't as good as everybody made him out to be. But I think people get entrenched on their takes. It's okay. They're their opinions. But it's very much a pro-Zappe level of support. I did find it interesting, too, that earlier this week, Jason McCourty said that he spent time with both Zappe and Mac Jones at an event earlier this week. And he said he enjoyed it. Everybody's upbeat. But Jason also said at the end that he suggested Mac should go back in, but he should be on a short leash. Matt, what would that mean? What would that entail?
Right, and that's an interesting conversation to have, because the coaches aren't going to go up to Mac and say, hey, look, if you don't play well, then you're going to be looking over your shoulder and Bailey Zappe. I think that as a quarterback, you feel the presence of Bailey Zappe because of the way that he's played, but you also want to give the utmost of confidence to Mac Jones, understanding that, hey, when we make the decision that we're going to roll with you, that you're our guy, and you don't want him to falter from that confidence, because him having confidence is a big part of him being successful when he goes out and playing at a high level. So if you make that decision to go with Mac, then that's the decision that the coaching staff has made, Coach Belichick's made, and that's what you got to roll with, and that's what you got to embrace. But at the same time, I will say this: if Mac Jones does go out there and falter, if he has some games where he's turnover prone again, if he's not playing to the level that they think he should be or where he should be at, then I would say that there's a possibility that they do go back to Bailey Zappe, who has performed well in the short period of time that we've seen him play.
But that's games, not halves, right?
It's games. It's not halves. You can't go into a game and say, hey, look, Mac Jones is going to start the half. We struggled in the first half for whatever reason, or he struggled, and now third quarter comes around and Bailey Zappe's in the game. You can't do that. You can't ping pong from one quarterback to the next. You got to give everybody an understanding of who the leader is today, who the quarterback's going to be moving forward and throughout the course of the game. But those decisions, I think, are made during the week. They're not made in games.
Yeah, to me, it's a shorter leash. It's not a short leash, right? I mean, coming into the season, when Brian Hoyer is your backup and Bailey Zappe is the number 3, everybody's looking at Mac Jones. He's going to get every single snap of consequence in the 2022 season and beyond, no matter what. Now that you know that you have somebody who can at least keep his hands on 10-2 and even at times do a little bit more than that, which is what we saw in that game against the Browns, where they didn't really run it all that much, and they put it in Bailey Zappe's hands to an extent and won that game through the air on the offensive side of the ball. At least you know you have somebody back there. So if, as Matt says, over multiple games, over maybe a month or more of time, if you start to see the turnovers get really sideways, that's really the one thing I could see Bill Belichick saying, we just can't have it. I know we're trying to be more explosive, but turnovers are so important to Bill Belichick. They always have been. He tries to avoid them like the plague. So if that's going in the complete wrong direction and things fall off a cliff in that regard, then maybe. But I still don't see this as being a job that goes back to Bailey Zappe if Mac Jones is healthy for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and you've bought yourself. Now you've unearthed a player who can compete, or who is a very capable backup, it seems, and maybe could compete with Mac Jones if Mac Jones does not proceed between now and January. Between now and January, if he just stays stagnant and there's no discernible difference between his performance and Bailey Zappe's, then it sets you up for next year. But anything drastic done at the quarterback position, I think, look, it's a team that's probably a mid-tier team that could nose around the edge of the playoffs. I don't think they're going to make a ton of noise. So get all the intel and data you can on Mac Jones in 2022. Once he goes back in there, for better or worse, you're riding with him until January. If by the end of the season you get back in, you audit your season and you say, it was this throw, it was this throw, it was this throw. Look how he did all this on the 3rd and 1s and flinging it downfield against the Dolphins in the opener, and he's still doing it at the end of the year. Well, then you're going into the offseason in April and saying, we're going to have a competition here. You guys are, I don't even know if they say it that way, but you go into it with the mind that, okay, we don't have a starting quarterback. Somebody has to seize this job. Matt, is there a level of awkwardness that exists sometimes between quarterbacks when one's calling for one, when the outside people are calling for a switch?
I mean, it's up to the individual himself and how much you let that get into your internal mind frame, right? And it can be difficult because the questions that are asked throughout the course of a week by the media, you know that there is that narrative out there about you, your job security, all those things, but you've got to be mentally tough. That's why you signed up for this position. There's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, and right now there's ebbs and flows, right? And he's on the bottom end of this, and so he's now got to go out and just start stacking up steady performances, and that's what he has to do. But you've got to be able to block out the noise. And I'll never forget when I was a rookie, Doug Flutie was there, and I said, Doug, there's a great article in the paper about you today, about your career, about all your accomplishments. I said, hey, did you read it? Because I thought it was fascinating. It was really great. And he goes, I never read the paper ever, whether good, whether bad. I said, but this is a really good one. You should read this about yourself. And he's like, no, I never pick it up because I don't want to ride those highs and lows, because from one week to the next, I could be the best thing ever out there, or I could be the worst. And so the best thing that you can do as a player is just focus on the task at hand, focus on your job, go out there, get ready for your opponent, and don't let the outside noise impact you, whether good, whether bad, because it does have an impact on players.
Is that hard?
It's hard.
I mean, because you got 53 guys in the locker room as teammates, you got coaches, you got trainers, people coming up to you and saying, hey, look at this.
Yeah, it's really hard. And I'll remember when I was in Kansas City and I heard a lot of noise on the outside, and I know the questions that were being asked, and why are you struggling? This, that, and the other. Should they make a switch? All those things. And it can become lonely at the quarterback position. You go home, you don't want to go out, you don't want to do anything until you really are able to go out and do your job at a high level. And sometimes it's out of your control. Sometimes it's in your control, and you just got to grind and get through it. And it can be very difficult. It can. But at this point in the season, as early as it is, and with Mac Jones having accomplished as much as he has over his rookie season, and even in the beginning of the year, while it didn't go well and he has had turnovers, he's played really well at times. So he's got hang his hat on that, get back and focused on playing good football and just taking care of the football, and that will kind of solve all those issues.
I'm really interested to see how he responds, Tom, because really all last year we described Mac Jones as somebody who was really resilient, whether it was in training camp, back and forth with Cam Newton. If he had a bad series or a bad day, he always seemed to come back to the next one with a really strong performance. And that's why you and I both felt like really from early in camp that he could be the guy and that he would eventually be the guy. And then even last year during the season, I mean, nobody got hit more than Mac Jones through the first month of last season. This guy's a rookie. Guy who got sawed in half by Randy Gregory when the Cowboys came to Gillette Stadium. He goes into the locker room at halftime, comes back out. He puts them in position to win that game with a late touchdown drive. And so somebody who, again, has consistently, in my opinion, in the short time that he's been in the NFL, has bounced back from different things. And so I'm interested to see how he bounces back from this injury and from what a lot of people would say is not a great performance through 3 games.
All right. Well, Phil has reported earlier this week that there's an expectation that Mac Jones will be good to go on Monday night. Mike Reese from ESPN echoing that today. He expects to play on Monday night, or at least be ready to. So once that clearance comes, obviously with a Monday night game, we have a stagger to the week. We will start to see beginning Thursday his participation level. We'll be back in just a second. We're going to talk a little bit about that upcoming opponent, the Bears. All right, welcome back, everybody. There are 32 teams in the league, and that's where the Bears stack up in so many offensive categories. Right there at the bottom, 31 or 32. This is brought to you by Shaw's, perfecting the art of fresh. Bill Belichick, meanwhile, takes a look at the quarterback on the other side. Justin Fields doesn't really hate what he sees.
Again, a very athletic kid. He's gets out of a lot of trouble with his athleticism, his speed, his size, balance. He runs well. I think he can see the field. Again, they lead the league in yards per pass attempt. So when they throw it, there are a lot of downfield plays. He's accurate. He can throw on the run. He can throw in the pocket. And he sees down the field as well as, at other areas in the intermediate and checkdowns and, screens and things like that, which they're very good at, especially with the 2 outstanding backs that they have.
All right, back with the boys. It's Phil Perry. It's Matt Cassel. Phil, they are inept offensively, but sometimes it doesn't seem as if Fields is being put in the right spot. We heard a lot of conversation after their primetime game last Thursday that you got to play to Justin Fields' strengths, and asking him to stand in the pocket and throw is depriving them of his dynamic play on the outside.
Yeah, it's very strange that they don't try to incorporate his athleticism more into their designed offense. Now, you do see his athleticism pop at times, as Bill Belichick mentions there, but it's always with unscripted scramble drill types of plays, it seems. And again, he can be really dangerous when he does that. But in terms of the things that they're actually building into their offense on a weekly basis, there's a real dearth of quarterback run plays, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a Lamar Jackson type of offense to get a little bit of this stuff sprinkled in. But for some reason, they're reluctant to do that. I get it if you want to just try to make sure you're keeping that quarterback healthy, but he's already not all that healthy, Matt. So it's not really working out. You might as well try to leverage the guy's legs.
It's really difficult, and they're in a difficult situation because this offensive line has been atrocious. I mean, you think about it, when they've dropped back 115 times only this season, they're by far the least amount of dropbacks in the league. He's already been sacked 23 times. So, I mean, it's 20% of the time he drops back, this guy gets hit in the pocket. So incorporating some zone reads, some RPOs, get him outside the pocket. And they do incorporate the boot and the movement stuff to get him outside the pocket. But again, dropping back right now with this offensive line, I think that they're just so worried that they're going to get this kid hurt. And not only that, it's going to have long-term repercussions in terms of him mentally being able to stand in the pocket, deliver the baby, and do all that stuff, that they've relied solely on their run game. I mean, they've got two good running backs. David Montgomery's been really really good, and I know that he's got hurt, but Khalil Herbert's been just as effective. He's averaging 6.3 yards a carry. They're the second-ranked rushing offense in the league. So they're going to lean heavily on the run and then try to incorporate some dropbacks. But it would be interesting to see why not take the opportunity to open it up a little bit and see if they can actually get something going with the zone reads, the RPOs, get him outside the pocket a little bit more, because right now what they're doing is they're completely inept from a passing attack.
And they've seen two teams in a row, Detroit and Cleveland, who were both hell-bent on trying to exploit the Patriots on the ground, trying to run on them. And really, the Packers did a good job of it, and then the Patriots kind of bowed up. The Ravens obviously gashed the hell out of them because they have Lamar Jackson to a large extent, but this could be another game where, whether it's Mac or Bailey Zappe, if the Patriots' offensive line performs and they stop the run, regardless of whether the Patriots do it through the air or with Ramondre Stevenson, they should be able to stack a lead and then go and hide, Phil.
No question. Because, again, not only is the passing offense inept because of the design, because of the offensive line, as Matt mentioned, but, Matt mentioned the two running backs. That might be the extent of their talent at the skill positions offensively. So if the Bears get down on the scoreboard, who are they throwing the ball down the field to and having a lot of success with? Darnell Mooney, I mean, he's a really fast, really slight guy, a little reminiscent. I think he's a better player than Damiere Byrd, but a little bit reminiscent of that sort of style of play. And you just can't live on that. I mean, this is a team that traded for N'Keal Harry to try to upgrade their receiver room. I think that is a real indication, Matt, of how desperate they are for skill at that position. And as talented as Justin Fields is, it could be coaching, it could be mechanics, which I think, again, could be related to coaching, but he does spray the ball around a little bit too, even when he does have time. He's second to last in the league in terms of completion percentage, over expectation, which is a next gen stat. And you can scoff at it if you want, but it does seem to be a pretty good indicator of which quarterbacks are the most accurate in football. And he's near the bottom of the league.
Yeah, and a lot of it comes down to, look, this offensive line, I'm sure that he's not confident back there in the pocket. He feels rushed at times. And anytime you play the position at quarterback and you feel rushed and you're not in rhythm with your throws because you're feeling like you're getting hit constantly, that has an impact on you. It has an impact on your accuracy. It has an impact in terms of just being able to get the ball to your playmakers on time. And so those things are all going to play in. And I guarantee this week that Coach Belichick is saying this is, if we're going to do anything, we need to start fast this week. Because you guys both hit the nail on the head when you said, look, if they start fast, get a lead, get up, 10 points early or even 14 points and make them be one-dimensional, so to speak, which they won't become because they live and die with the run. But if you make them have to pass to get back in the game, that's a great recipe for success for the New England Patriots, especially with the way the secondary of the New England Patriots have been playing.
Yeah, I mean, in their last game, the ineptitude of their red zone offense, of their offense entirely, was on display against the daunting Commanders. It was 12-7, and some of the red zone throws by Justin Fields, airmailing the ball. The run design, the play design on what would have been a game-winning play. They didn't even have the receiver in the end zone. He was at the doorstep. He got pulled down. Justin Fields, he gets freaked out and he drops down to like 3/4. Stuff's getting batted. So all that said, even with all the Zappe talk, Matt and Phil, would you still take Mac Jones number 2 behind Trevor Lawrence if you were redrafting the 5 quarterbacks who went in the first round last year?
I would. I still think he's shown enough in terms of potential. I thought Dan Orlovsky did a pretty good job of describing some of the things that we have seen from Mac Jones. We have on record, even if people may have forgotten by this point in his second year. Kurt Warner on the Next Pats podcast was great as well. He said,
well, I think the bottom line really comes down to which of these two guys do you think is better? Which of these guys, do you believe can be your long-term answer? I haven't seen anything from Mac Jones or anything from Bailey that I say, oh my gosh, you got to go with Bailey because, he does this better than Mac. I would be hard pressed to think that they're not going to go back to Mac here at some point. I think this gives you that luxury of saying, Mac, get healthy. We feel comfortable with the young guy and he's playing well and we're not asking him to do too much. So we're comfortable with that. And so you can get fully healthy before you get back in there.
So there's still so much there that we know about Mac Jones. And this is taking his potential out of the equation. I think he's got plenty of room to grow. He's still early in his second year here with a new offensive staff and a new offense. The potential, Matt, is still there in my opinion. So yeah, I probably would go Lawrence, although he hasn't been all that impressive either, even in this second season with a better coaching staff around him. I'd go Mac Jones second over Justin Fields.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I mean, if you look at his body of work up to this point, and there is so much progress to still be made. He's only early in his second season. But if you look at these other quarterbacks, Trey Lance, obviously we know he had the season-ending injury. But Zach Wilson with the Jets, if you watch him play, they're really relying on being able to run the ball with Breece Hall and do all that stuff. They're not really relying on him because he continues to put the ball at risk. And he's not a great decision maker. Now, he wows you with his arm and his athleticism. But at the end of the day, if you want consistent play, if you want a guy that can go out there and have read the defenses, pre-snap, post-snap, deliver the ball accurately, Mac Jones is the second best quarterback still in this class, and he's proven that. And if you look at him from a statistical standpoint, was better than Trevor Lawrence by far.
Well, it's interesting. The only guy out there that you could even start to make a case for as having improved enough would be Zach Wilson, who we'll see in the not-too-distant future. Guys, another tremendous performance by you. Make sure you check out that Next Pats podcast that Phil mentioned with Kurt Warner. Good intel on that. Make sure you send a prayer up for Matt Cassel's quad. He tried to beat out an infield single yesterday, blew that thing out. Also had a dinger last night as well.
First one, boys. First one. But I did pull my quad. How does that even happen?
Dinger makes the pain disappear, my friend.
It went away, boys. At least this morning when my boys came down and said, Dad, did you hit a home run? I looked him in the eye and said, I sure the heck did, boys. Yeah!
Ran over to him and he just fell down because his quad hurt too bad. All right, everybody. See ya.